Tell me your story.
How did it all start? Do you remember?
Oh, now what happened? How did it start?
This is Small Business Origins.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Small Business Origins. I am your host, as always, John Kelley, aka John the Marketer on Instagram and TikTok, and you're tuned in to our nationwide search for entrepreneurs that have a story to tell. Joining us virtually in the studio is an entrepreneur that wants to do just that. From Long Beach, New York, we've got Dan Henk. He's with the Abyss Fine Art and Tattoo Studio and Dead Guy LLC. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Man, it is always our pleasure to have another entrepreneur on the show that we get to learn about. And before we hop into kind of a crazy story that I've been reading up on you about, we have to start out with our icebreaker question. We always start out with an icebreaker question, and today's is, what is one of your irrational fears?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably claustrophobia. And actually, I have a good story behind that if you want to hear it. It's pretty short.
Heck yeah.
It's I had brain cancer, and I had no money when I had brain cancer, so I went to Bellevue Hospital. So Bellevue has these giant old school MRI machines, and with brain cancer, they have to they strap you down to a stretcher, like you can't even move your arms, and they shuttle you way into the middle of it. So it's like, you're on the stretcher, the thing is like this close to your face, and you're buried like way into it. So you couldn't even move if you wanted to. And then you have to sit there absolutely still while this magnet whips around your head. It makes this crazy, whistling noise. And the minute you move, they're like, we have to start over again. So, and you have to do that for an hour at a time. So before that happened, I was not claustrophobic. Like as a little kid, we climb on our skateboards and we'd go down sewer pipes and stuff like that. I could care less. After that, I'm claustrophobic. Like I saw the movie The Descent. And if you saw the movie The Descent, at one point they go cave diving. And I was like, I almost freaked out.
Yeah, those cave diving videos I've seen on TikTok get me all the time. I am definitely claustrophobic myself. The MRI machine didn't bother me too much, but it definitely made me uncomfortable when I had to go in that. I'm not crazy about it for sure, but for me, it's more when I feel stuck. When I feel stuck, it just triggers something in my brain.
Cancer, we have to do it every single week for an hour.
Yeah, that would probably drive me nuts just a little bit, I'm sure. Yeah, mine, man, I'll tell you, June bugs. I don't know why. They can't hurt you. They can't sting you, bite you, anything like that. But June bugs absolutely drive me insane. And every single time, grown ass man, 250 pounds plus. And if I have a June bug flying at me, I'm running every single time. And it's been like that since I was a kid. I don't know why I'm so scared of them, but I am. My family definitely makes fun of me every second that they get a chance to. They absolutely love to do it. And I don't even care. I'm that terrified of them. I don't know why. It's just, I don't know,
That's
man.
What family is for. Family and friends. They're there to bust your balls.
That's right. All right. Well, man, we're here to talk about you. And I know you've got one hell of a loaded personal story that you've already alluded to with the brain cancer stuff and everything else. So let's just hop into your personal story. What is your origin story?
Well, my dad's military. So I grew up as an army brat and isolated bases everywhere. And we didn't make very much money. My mom was a stay-at-home mom with a couple kids. My dad worked military. But, he spent a lot of his money on guns because he's a big gun fanatic. He has over 1,000 guns,
Wow.
So it was we did what we could on the cheap. So, I went to the library a lot. I'd check out whole stacks of books and bring them home. I did a lot of, building tree forts and, riding my BMX bike around town and, upstate Buffalo, New York or, northern Florida, wherever we were stationed. 'Cause 3 years at a time, we kept moving. But I developed a big love of sci-fi and fantasy and horror and stuff. I kind of lived in my own imaginary world, and I like to pretend like I still do. But
yeah.
You come high school, I got heavily into punk rock. I had the blue mohawk. I looked like a British punk rocker. I had the leather jacket with the spikes on it and everything. And my parents are very conservative and very Christian. And that did not fly with them. So I turned 18. They kicked me out of the house. I was homeless. Like I lived for 8 months in the woods, rocks and pillow, walking around all night. Sometimes I didn't freeze to death. I take showers in McDonald's restrooms, like, the quick shower, I remember somebody gave me $2 and I bought a bag of rice and I lived off that for 2 weeks, and I stole salt and pepper from McDonald's and I'd season it and cook it in like a little foam cup. And I mean, you got to do what you got to do, and then like I eventually got a job at Chuck E. Cheese, which sucks. I do not recommend Chuck E. Cheese, but I worked my way up. I wanted to go to art school, so I put myself through community college for art. My art teacher said, if you want to career in art, you got to move to New York City. So, and at the time I was in Virginia, which is not a hotbed of artistic activity. So I moved to New York City, and it's been, very rocky road ever since. But like, I feel like I've steadily gone somewhere. Like now I write books and I do lots of illustrations for magazines, to bands. I own a tattoo studio, so it seems to be kind of working out.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was it that kind of was your pivotal moment where you were able to kind of shift and pull yourself out of homelessness and all this stuff into becoming that entrepreneur?
Well, I think what it was is like when you're a kid, you kind of like, maybe not everybody, but, a lot of kids have this kind of like, I'm indestructible attitude, so they're like, like, I'll do what I want. Everybody's just a hater, so like I was drinking, I was like, a decent amount, I was doing a decent amount of drugs. I was like going to shows and like, I wasn't looking at the future at all. And at some point I was like, hey, right now I'm 18, but I don't want to be like 30 and I'm a loser. So I got to do something. So then I started trying to get a job. And I remember the people with like the lowest standards for employment were Chuck E. Cheese. So I got a job there. Like I got a better job within 2 weeks. And I quit Chuck E. Cheese by calling them from the other job and saying, hey, I quit. But, that was my stepping stone. It was like basically a personal decision of, I got to do something because nobody cares. If it's not you, nobody cares. They might say, hey, well, it kind of sucks, but, if you want something to happen, you got to do it yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the message that most entrepreneurs have is no one's going to care about you the way that you care about you. Right. And not only that, but what you can do for your employees and the people around you and your clients and the way you can elevate that experience. I mean, if somebody has extremely low employment standards, then you can almost guarantee that they have a very low customer service value as well. Right. So it's what you can do for those that both utilize your business and work for your business that kind of sets you apart, I think. Now,
well,
I know
it gets you more money. It gets you a better job. It gets you all that stuff. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and it doesn't necessarily mean less work either. We know entrepreneurs are some of the hardest working people out there that have to spend, the earliest mornings and latest nights building what they have. But ultimately, it's that payoff at the end that you get, whatever it is that you're after, whether it's money or opportunity or, sometimes it can be fame and sometimes it can just be delivering a really good product and being really good at it.
Right.
I know that you've been kind of hit, it seems like, just time after time after time with hardships, man. So if you don't mind just going into some of those hardships you faced and put them on the timeline for us because, of course, I see some dates and stuff that you submitted to me of some of these pretty harsh things you went through. But tell me when you first started building yourself up and where you were in the timeline of these hits, how you recovered, and then ultimately got to the point you're at today.
I'll try and make it pretty brief, like a spotlight. But so I was drawing a lot and I was submitting to everybody. And at the time I was a dishwasher, but like I said, I was trying to go somewhere else, but that paid the rent. And I lived with my girlfriend in D.C. And I remember I got in a fight with the crackhead. He got in the place. He's severed the tendon on my hand. So we ended up moving to Northern Virginia, like right next to D.C., because she worked in D.C. And I kept submitting to everyone. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm getting a lot of like, hey, we like your stuff, but not hiring. So I was like, so what I need to do is, I need to take this seriously. What would I do? I'm like, I'll go to art school. I was like, well, I can't afford art school, but here's a community college. I'll go to the community. So I went to the community college, and anything you do, you just got to work your ass off. So I worked my ass off, and the teacher seemed to really appreciate it, really nice guy. And he said, if you want an art career, you got to move to New York. So I moved to New York. And by that point, when I finally moved, I had a restaurant job. I was like, oh, so I'll get a restaurant job in New York. Easier said than done, by the way. You move to a big city, they're like, oh, if you don't have a job here, you don't know the market. So, but eventually I worked there, but I kept drawing. I kept submitting stuff. I did interview with DC Comics. I interviewed with Penguin Books. The comics, by the way, pay almost nothing, and they demand a ton of work. Just so you know, in Penguin Books, they pay a lot of money, but the jobs that you get are very sparse, so it's hard to pay your rent off them. But so I'm like trying to figure it out. I started doing album covers. I started doing all this stuff. And then I started tattooing. And initially I started tattooing as a way to make money doing artwork while I got a, quote, real job. Although then I liked tattooing so much that I stuck with it. Tattooing changed a lot. But then while I was tattooing, I was about a year into tattooing, and I came down with brain cancer. But I was like, I'm on such a roll now. Like I was painting album covers. I was like, I've been tattooing. I was like, I'm not going to let this stop me. So I had brain cancer, and I had chemotherapy, and I had radiation treatments. And a lot of that stuff is pretty hardcore. It's pretty devastating. But like I was just telling you, like, if you don't make it, nobody cares. I was like, I'm not going to be that guy that like just gets flushed down the toilet. I'm going to keep going. Like, I was still going to the gym 3 times a week, even on chemotherapy, and like I was living in Williamsburg, so I'd bike up the Williamsburg Bridge, make it about halfway over, stop, throw up over the railing of the bridge, and then bike to the gym. But I was like, I had this mentality of if you give up, that's it. I'm not giving up. I'm not going to let this beat me. So I had that for a while. Well, I was trying to recover from giving. It's a long story. It's kind of a convoluted story, so I'm trying to skip through it as fast as possible. But
man, we're here to hear about it, bud. You don't have to skip through anything for me. This is insane. The amount of hardships that people go through and can overcome, man. It gives you perspective. I love it.
But well, in the old school days, like a lot of people that are like people go, oh, they're rich now. It's like they had like 5 jobs before they finally made it, But anyway, so I was a tattoo artist. I've been a tattoo artist for 2 years, and I was finally starting to get some recognition off that. And there was another guy at my shop. He's like, hey, I want to open a new shop. I was like, okay. He's like, well, I want to open it with you. I was like, well, I've only been tattooing for a couple of years. I don't think I've been in the business long enough. He's like, dude, I'll do everything. Just you'll be kind of my partner in this, whatever. So I did. I was saving up money. I was like, preparing everything. Then I came down with brain cancer. Then we made a joint bank account so we could spend the money getting supplies for the shop. Basically, he's a bad guy. He blew all my stuff. He got a bad location. Like, he screwed me over hardcore. And the girl I was dating was, it's really weird because when you have a serious medical ailment, it's a cliche, but you find out who your true friends are. Yeah. Because, there are people that I thought were great friends of mine, did everything with me, didn't even visit me in the hospital. And afterwards, they talk to me on the phone, but it'd be like, oh, yeah, man, I got to do this. So they basically blow you off. But there was a girl I was going out with, and every single day she was visiting me. So I was like, this is a good person, so we got married. And so she was going to move down there, to the shop with me. I was still on chemotherapy. She moved down there. It was a mess. We came back up to New York, and then after about 6 years, 7 years, everything had kind of cleared out. I was now off chemotherapy. But the problem is chemotherapy, like they tell you, is poison. Hopefully it kills the cancer, not you. So it ruins your body. So yeah. I thought the minute I got off of it, I'd be fine. No, you're not. You get off of it, you're super weak. I tried to take a protein shake, I immediately threw it up, So, I took a little bit of an extended period, about 7 years, and then she died in a hit and run. And then there was that was going on, and it's weird because in a way, that's right where my tattoo career started taking off. Like I was in all of a sudden in all the magazines, everybody's paying a lot of attention. But then it's like one of the most horrible things ever happens to me, you know. So then I'm trying to navigate through that. And then I ended up moving down to Texas. I worked down there for a while because I was like, screw New York. I'm done in New York. You know, I had brain cancer. My wife died, you know. But when I was down in Texas, like I do this very dark, detailed style. That's not big in Texas. Like simple, traditional, large, colorful walk-in tattoos are much bigger in the area of Texas I moved to. So, you know, I was doing a lot of traveling. I was like, I'll just move back to New York then. So, but I was like, I don't want to move to New York City. Maybe I'll move to Philadelphia. So I was there for 3 years, then I moved to New York. So I bounced all around. And eventually, one of the guys I worked with suggested opening a tattoo shop. And I was like, you know, well, I like being an artist. I don't like being like a shop owner. But he's like, no, we're going to do it like this. So it ended up happening. And we ended up opening a shop. And it's a good thing. And the thing is, I always wanted to be a writer. And I started doing a lot of that. But being a shop owner allows me to tattoo a little bit less so I can work on writing and art more. So before I was doing that, and I was like cramming everything in and stressing myself out. So I'm, you know, that gives me a little more leeway.
Yeah. So where are y'all located with your shop?
In Long Beach, New York. It's about 35 minutes out of the city.
Okay.
Like out of Manhattan.
Are y'all pretty busy to where it's kind of like no walk-ins, or do y'all do like those late night walk-ins?
We don't do the late night walk-ins necessarily. We have some people there that are all booked up, and we have some people there that will take walk-ins, but it's not like you just walk in the door and we just do it. It's more like you call, we see if there's availability, we go, what do you want? And what a lot of people want now, even when they say it's a small tattoo, is actually a very detailed several-hour tattoo. You know, it's like, so, you know, we need to plan like 3 to 4 hours to do that tattoo. And then, you know, like we need another half hour for setup. And then, you know, we probably need another hour to draw the whole piece. So, you know, people have gotten away from that. Like when I started tattooing in like 98, like I remember a lot of people got like little tiny tattoos, like the little NY symbol or like a little infinity sign or a little cancer ribbon. Now people want like half sleeves or they want giant pieces. You know, it's like, you know, and they want a giant piece, and like to them, their vision of a large piece is that whole sleeve. So they go, oh, I just want a small piece, but it would be like that big. It's like a super realistic portrait. You know, so considering what the way the market is now, you know, a lot of people, it's better if we go, what do you want? And we plan it out. You know, if they just want something like a little bit of lettering or something like that, we can often handle that within a day or two. So we have different artists in the studio, like people who are more booked up on like big pieces and people who do more of the walk-ins.
Yeah. How many artists do you have there?
Well, we have, let's see, 5 full-time artists. 2 of them are booked up all the time. Another one is booked up like 3 months. Another one is booked up only like 2 weeks. And one does a lot of walk-ins, has much more availability. And we have one apprentice. So we'll see how that goes. You know, but so far she's doing great. And then we have 2 part-time artists. One guy that we see about like every month. I'm like, you can come in more, but you know, that's what he wants. So I'm like, and then we
just
have
need to
another
make
guy,
some cash every now and then.
I guess. And like, I know his wife had surgery. So all of a sudden we saw him at a shop, like, you know, more often, like 2 or 3 times a week, you know, because he probably had to make money for his wife's surgery. But, you know, it's kind of flaky. I don't know. And then we have another guy, you know, he works at 2 places. He works for us and he works at a place called Amity Irons. So there's about 2 days with us and about 2 or 3 days with them.
Yeah, I love how much tattoos have finally, I don't want to say come to the mainstream because, man, tattoos have always been a huge thing, but they're more widely accepted now. And I think that's probably what drives this whole, like, you know, so many people that are not 100% familiar with the tattoo industry themselves, and they just know, you know, obviously a whole arm or a half arm is a lot. You know, if you're getting a half sleeve, like everyone knows that's going to take a while, but you're right. I mean, even when I first started getting tattoos and I would go in and I'm like, oh, I want to get this whole shoulder done, but nothing, not even really a half sleeve. It's just one piece on it. And it's like, well, that takes a while. There's a lot of letters and lines and detail and stuff that it takes to put into that. And it really opened my eyes. And I think a lot of new people who couldn't have tattoos before, or at the very least couldn't have anything visible at all, are now being accepted in some big positions like police departments, fire departments, and those kind of places that are saying, hey, no, you can have tattoos visible. We're not going to sit there and govern that.
I think people are recognizing this more, your ability and not just the way you look. And that's kind of like an old school, very conservative attitude. Like, you got to look a certain way. It's like, no, you don't. Do you do the job well? Like, I mean, you take a deep dive into that with like racism and all sorts of stuff. But it's like, I think evaluate the person by how well they do the job, not on whether or not they have crazy hair or like darker skin or more tattoos or whatever. Who really cares? Yeah. And in this day and age with tattoos, like the younger the people are, the more accepting they are. I think they say like under 36, 80% of the population tattooed.
Yeah. I mean, you're exactly right. It's growing up. You had that old school mentality of, if you want to be in business, then you better not have any tattoos. And if you do have a tattoo, it better not be visible. Something that, you wouldn't even have your bosses find out about. You have to look the part to play the part. And I think it goes even beyond just things like tattoos or hair or piercings or the obvious, man. I think that we're finding out in society that you don't have to necessarily do certain things or look certain ways to get jobs done. Like if we look at how we're on this podcast together right now through a video conferencing software, and it's like, how many people thought that another huge software like Zoom was going to bring so many business people together that they were going to be able to operate entire organizations virtually? It was always that mentality I've heard of, if selling starts at 8, you got to be there at 7. If it starts at 7, you got to be there at 6. Like, you got to wake up and be in the office from very early until very late. If you're going to be successful in business, you got to be away from your family, all of these things. And we have this mentality shift similar to the tattoo stuff of like, no, it's now becoming something you can have. We're seeing it all over the place where it's like, no, you don't have to be at work every single day in order to work and do, as long as your work is done, that's all that matters. And it's like, I don't care what you look like, as long as your work is done, that's all that matters. And I'm glad that we're finally having that shift.
Yeah. I think COVID opened a lot of people's eyes too, because like, even if they don't come in, if they can get the job done, that's what's really important. Like, I can understand, like, don't look like a slob if you're like public relations for a company, but like, that kind of goes across the board. It doesn't matter your race or gender or anything like that. Just don't look like a slob, but as far as like, people expressing the personalities without looking like a slob, I think the world's got a lot more accepting, and like that COVID kind of forced people to just like, we need something done well. Can you do it well?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're an artist outside of traditional drawing art. I consider writing to be an art, and you're an author. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I have 3 books out now. The newest one is called The End of the World, and I'm doing a compilation. And fortunately, because I do a lot of art for authors, I do magazine covers and book covers and so on, I was going to put out an anthology with a bunch of horror authors putting in a short story. I said, I will trade you the original drawing I did for one of your other stories in exchange for a short story. Like, okay. So I actually managed to get some big name authors, and I have an anthology called The Never Dead, and hopefully it'll be out within a few months. And like everybody that contributed, I'm doing like a little illustration for each of the stories, and I painted the book cover, and I think it'll be a great thing.
So are these nonfiction or fiction stories?
They're all fiction. They're all like kind of like, I wanted like sci-fi horror, but I was like, what I really like is like the Twilight Zone, the Outer Limits, that kind of like suspenseful, good storytelling, not just like shot gag in your face,
Right. And then on top of that, you offer services for authors. So you can do all of the artwork and stuff that's involved with launching a book.
Yeah, I'm actually already involved in that. I can send you a bunch of the illustrations if you like, but I've already done like 7 of the illustrations for the book, but every short story is going to have an illustration. So like if you see those old books from like the 40s and they have that little illustration, like it takes up like a quarter of one page or whatever, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing like little illustrations to go with every story.
That's awesome. So if we're looking to connect with you to learn more about what you do, to book a session for the tattoo shop, or if I've got a book that's coming out and I want to get some artwork done from you, or whatever the case may be, what's the best way to start getting in touch with you?
Well, I have a website where you can actually see what everything is. It's danhenk.com. And then my email is real easy. It's danhenk@gmail.com.
Nice. Are you on social media at all?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm even on TikTok. I don't do the little dances with the tutu, but I'm there. I'm on Twitter.
Yeah,
I'm on a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
I hate to admit how addicted I am to TikTok these days, but there's some really cool creative stuff out there.
Yeah. No, there is. And it's always funny when like comedians or people that don't even realize they're comedians do something funny, and you get in like that, you fall down that rabbit hole where you're like, oh, look at this one. Oh, look at this one. And you're like, yep. Oh shit, it's been like 2 hours.
Yeah. And then I send my friend, over 200 requests to view videos on TikTok because he doesn't look at them for a week straight. And then he gets mad at me for it because that's all I do is just sit there and spam him and my wife with TikTok videos.
I do that to my girlfriend, the same thing. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. You should see this. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you do any of the like behind the scenes tattoo stuff on TikTok? I know that's pretty big.
I do. Well, I've started to do this thing because people seem to really like it where I'll do a time lapse. So when I'm working on a piece, I'll do a time lapse and then I try to like show the piece finished beforehand and then time lapse me working on it then after. So people see what they're looking at. Like first it draws them in, then they see the process, and then they see it done. So I feel like that's a good way to get it across and, make it visible to people. I used to post, I do a lot of stuff that's in progress. So I used to post that, but I stopped doing that because a lot of people don't understand. They think, oh, that's the finished tattoo. Yeah. And I'm like, no, that's not the finished tattoo. That's why it doesn't look amazing yet. But trust me, it will, But rather than tell people, and people have short attention spans, I'd rather just show it.
Well, here's the thing. It doesn't matter how many times you tell them. There's still going to be a group out there that's too dumb to understand what you're trying to say.
It's true.
I have found that some of the most ignorant people in society have shown themselves online recently, man, with some of the things that they say. And you're right. It's like, hey, here's a tattoo in progress. And, well, you're the worst tattoo artist in the world. I'd never get shit done by you. That looks like shit. And it's like, bro, he's 2 hours into his 10-hour piece. It looks pretty good. We made a lot of progress.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah. It's insane. There's something I need to get a cover up on my right arm. I need to get my back piece finished out, which it's just a work in progress. I had some basic outlining done by somebody and then never got it finished. So I just need to find an artist that'll just kind of make it look good. So I don't know, man. I love traveling to New York. I've only been able to go once, but it was an amazing experience. So I definitely need to get up there and come see you and get some work done by you, man.
Yeah, you can shoot me an email, shoot me a picture of what you have, and I'll tell you what works and what doesn't. One thing I want to mention real quick is all those TV tattoo shows, a lot of them, you got to take them with a grain of salt because that stuff is not reality. And I'll even tell you a real quick story. So if you ever saw New York Inc. With Megan Massacre on it, she's a little goth-looking girl, and she did one of those cover-up shows like America's Worst Tattoos or Tattoo Nightmares or whatever, but they don't have a studio. So the studio I was working at, she also used to work at it. She asked if she could come back and film an episode, and we said, yeah, no problem. So when she came in, I remember a guy flew in from California to get tattooed by her, and he comes in the front door, and the camera crew was filming him, and then they said, wait, can you re-enter? So they made him re-enter 3 times, and they got the right angle. Then he talks to her and tells her what he has and what he wants. And they go, okay, well, can you use these words to describe it? And can you talk about it this way? So in that one, they shot several times. Then I remember it was a 2-day cover-up. And they filmed the entire first day, no commentary. The second day, they did like 15 minutes ago, all right, this is her 10 minutes of tattoo. And then they pull back. And then they waited 5 minutes or whatever. They go, all right, this is her 3 hours of the tattoo. And then they pull back. And then they waited another half hour. They go, all right, this is her 6 hours of the tattoo. So I remember we were all laughing in the studio. And the director leans over and he goes, there's no such a thing as reality TV. So that's what it is. It's very hit or miss, heavily edited. They do a lot that I don't like on Instagram. Like I wrote a whole article about that for one of the tattoo magazines about why Inkmaster sucks. And, you don't put a time limit on tattoo. They judge, regional preferences. I'll have another region judge, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things involving more than just the tattoo studios, but I think there are a lot of things about tattoo artists, tattoo studios that people just don't understand, like what makes a good artist, why things are so expensive, how you can get what you pay for. Right. And you can also regret, and I'm one of those people that you can regret what you didn't pay for.
We all do. We all have tattoos, especially tattoo artists. They're the worst. They have crappy tattoos they got back when they're like, oh yeah, tattoos are cool. I'll get into that. And then they got covered in all this bullshit. And they're like, now that I've seen really good artists, why do I have this?
Absolutely. Yeah, man. I'll tell you, part of my thing too is I want to spend way more money than I'm willing to spend on the level of work that I want to get. But I see these guys come in the firehouse all the time where I work and, they get their half sleeve done or they're finishing up a full sleeve. And I'm like, I'm so jealous. I want that so bad. But, it's just, it takes a lot of money and a lot of time too. People don't realize how much time you're going to spend in a chair or laying down, getting work done.
Well, one thing I do tell people is don't go by price. Like I figure I'm pretty nice with my customers. So I'm like, hey, what are you guys looking to spend? And I go over all that stuff. But the people who bargain, they're never going to get a good tattoo. And once you bargain, you piss a guy off. So do you really want the guy angry working on you?
No, not at all. I've been there. He wasn't angry, but I could tell he just wasn't happy with having to do the work. And I'm like, I wish you would have just refused and told me no, right. And just had me walk out the door. And he had a real heavy hand after that. I don't know if he normally did, but that tattoo definitely hurt. Luckily, it was on my calf, so it was a nice meaty portion where I could take it, no problem.
Trying to power up and hung the needle out a little bit further. When I tattoo people, not anymore because I mostly get my own customers now, but I tattoo people on the arm. And when you wrap it up, they're a total asshole. I make sure that I wrapped all the tape right through the armpit hair.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
So then when they hear all the, oh man, you know what really hurt? I'm like, I'll bet I do.
That's killer, man. So danhenk.com, DANHENK. We'll have all that stuff linked, of course, in our show notes. That way our listener right now can go check everything out. But man, I just want to get your piece of advice or your phrase, your saying, someone who can go through losing their wife in a car accident, brain cancer, being stabbed, being homeless, working dead-end jobs that you absolutely hate until you can finally get to a point where you have some financial freedom and some freedom of choice as far as the work you're doing. What is it that kept you going all that time? How did you stay so motivated to do for yourself?
Well, it's one, you have to have belief in yourself. Not necessarily that one thing's going to succeed, but you go, I'm capable of something, So the whole time I was going, hey, I think I'm a good artist. I think I'm a good writer. I'm like, I just need to get that across. So, I need to make that profitable. So I went through, I was trying to find a way to make art profitable. So I did album covers, I did t-shirt covers, I did whatever. And I was trying to figure out what I could pay my rent with and still do. So that's what you need to do. You need to find something to keep working at, and you need to not give up. You know, there are a lot of people that they give up. They're like, oh, I could have been a contender. It's like, yeah, but you didn't try. You know, like if you look at everybody that's like a big actor now, like Brad Pitt, like slept in his car. He was like homeless. He was like, so you look at all these people, they went through like trying times to get there. It's not like it was a smooth ride. So that's what I say. Just don't give up.
I think it's a lot like the news, right? What sells, what's sexy, what gets clicks, what gets attention, especially in an online world, is that finished product of the tattoo. It is the success. It is the end of a journey that gets all of the attention. And it's like, nobody is an overnight success. We're just paying attention to the end of what they were doing. So basically, it's like, instead of saying an overnight success, it's really an overnight success in 15 years or 20 years. Like, it took a lot of time to build it, but it seems like we're just not caring enough about the process and journey it took to get there, because it is people struggling. You know, it is people who are on the edge of a bed contemplating blowing their brains out. It is people who are contemplating quitting and just going home and just being done and not worrying about losing the house and losing the car. It is people who are just willing to divorce and not worry about keeping the family together for the kids, or working to have something and make it something. Like, we don't focus on those little things that it took years and years and years to get to the really big, wonderful, cool thing we're seeing, you know, or in your case, like the TikTok videos, we're not focusing on the 6 or 8 hours of work that it took and the progress from a drawing to a couple of lines on skin to some more detail to some shading to full color. We just want to see that full color image and say, this was an awesome tattoo that he was able to do. We don't want to see all the work that was involved behind it, because it's not as sexy as that finished product to some people. And I think we need to celebrate the shit that we all go through a little bit more, knowing that in the end, the result is going to be that beautiful finished piece.
Well, I give one more piece of advice too, which is like, put yourself out there as much as possible. Like, I remember when, you know, like, by now, like, it seems like everybody in the tattoo industry knows me. But I remember when I was starting out, I was like, that magazine could have 4 readers. You know, if they asked me for an interview, I'm like, dude, I'd love to do it. So just put yourself, like, it could be the crappiest magazine, it could be whatever, just do it, you know, to get yourself out there. So, like, I figure if you keep pushing and you keep pushing any social media, it could be a website only, interview, whatever, get yourself out there, and eventually it's going to add up.
It's marketing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, thank you for being on the show today and spending your time with me and opening up and telling us all of that story. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Small Business Origins. I can't thank you enough for being here every single week when we have a new episode featuring a new entrepreneur and a new company. Make sure that you head over to www.smallbusinessorigin.com. Check out the website. Send in your questions, your icebreaker questions, questions for our guests, comments for the show, things that you want to see. And of course, make sure, as always, that you are liking our content on social media, rating us and reviewing us wherever you listen to your podcast. Those ratings and reviews are so important. But that's it for us. It was another week, another great episode with an awesome guest. And as always, stay beefy, my friends.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Small Business Origins.
I love an origin story.
If you like what you just heard, leave us a review, subscribe, and share with a friend.
You guys, check this out.
They're going to love it. You're going to love it.